It's a wild world out there, but some worlds are even wilder. Hi, I'm Tyler Habney, and you're listening to Dungeons and Dystopias. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome back to Dungeons and Dystopias. This week, we are going to be discussing the brand new Cyberpunk RED mission sourcebook, Tales from the Red, Hope Reborn. This is a pretty good book containing array of new missions, about 6. You could consider it including more than that. There's small little mini gigs that make up one mission, so it's more like, I don't know, 10 to 11 missions if you really want to split it up into their own individual little mini gigs, but that's kind of beside the point. This book sort of follows off some of the old storylines that were originally put in place in the original Cyberpunk 2020 mission book, Tales from the Forlorn Hope. And that's the book that kind of sort of set up the Forlorn Hope and this concept of the bar. And to get into it, the Forlorn Hope is a place for old veterans of the South American War, or the Central American War in the Cyberpunk universe, which there's a lot of lore to go into there, but the general idea is it's a veteran bar. And a lot of people who are really experienced go to this bar to maybe do jobs in Night City, or maybe they're looking for work elsewhere, or maybe they're a new edge runner who's heard about the Forlorn Hope and they've come here to try to get in with this community and kind of become a known, recognized face. Either way, the Forlorn Hope was one of the premier Night City bars for quite a while, but it is, however, unfortunately absent from the video game Cyberpunk 2077. Not a single mention of the Forlorn Hope anywhere in that game, which is a real shame in my opinion, because we get a lot of the Afterlife, which is another super big bar in the Cyberpunk universe, but we never really get a ton from the Forlorn Hope, which is kind of the other side of that coin. And I'm hoping when we do get a Cyberpunk sequel, or maybe the next animated Cyberpunk project, hopefully maybe they talk a bit more about the Forlorn Hope and kind of what's happened to it since 2045. Because personally, there's a lot of lore there that's extremely interesting. Now, to kind of get into it, I have run only 2 missions out of this book so far. I've only had time to run 2. It just came out a few months ago. And we're not exactly running them sequentially. I mean, we are, but we have a bunch of side missions in between. But the first 2 missions both went extremely well with my group. I made sure to ask a lot of questions about how they felt about certain things, to just kind of figure out sort of, I guess, the my own personal thoughts on the missions. And I have a lot of them. The first mission it kind of sets everything up. It's called the Angel's Share, which is based off of, when they ferment alcohol, a certain bit of it kind of evaporates, and that's called the Angel's Share. I think that's, obviously that's a cool little explanation. The mission itself is pretty fun. It starts off with a bit of a diversion. Just some random gig that doesn't really mean anything. The idea is, the edge runners are kind of doing a favor for one of the bartenders at the Forlorn Hope, Marion Freeman, who is married to the owner, the professor. That's his name. But they're getting like snuff brain dances, and brain dances they're like movies, but you're experiencing everything from like a first person perspective. It's like Hardcore Henry if you could feel it. If I guess that would probably be the best way to describe it. But they just want to stop these snuff BDs in the neighborhood. And I mean, it's a pretty normal mission. So they send the edge runners out, and they wind up going after this guy who's selling BDs. He's hawking them, and he's selling them outside of some red chrome neo-Nazi bar. So obviously not the best part of town. But my players went about this pretty much like any other normal group would. I think there's definitely a bit of a divergence in what the writers of the mission planned and what my players did. So the intended routes are either the players are supposed to, like, maybe try to fake a deal with this guy, intimidate him, maybe follow him back to his hideout so they can destroy his gear that he makes this stuff with. But my players, they kind of did I guess a hybrid is what you would call it. They waited for the guy to be free of any customers, and then one of my players had an air pistol with sleep darts, and they used that on the guy selling the BDs. And I mean, they only designed the guy with like a 4 and resist torture and drugs, so he went down like a sack of potatoes. Like instantly. He didn't even know what hit him. His bodyguard, on the other hand, managed to survive the drugging, but still that led to a gunfight, which happened, right outside of this huge neo-Nazi gang bar. So out come all of them, and it became this giant shootout in the parking lot, all because, they decided to use their sleep darts. But either way, they managed to fight off the Red Chromers, fight off the bodyguard, by knocking him the hell out. And then they grabbed the guy and took him to a back alley and basically interrogated him into stopping. Now, this is all a diversion. This entire mission is just nothing but busy work to distract the edge runners from what's actually going on. And that is, somebody has planted bombs at the Forlorn Hope. The whole campaign's kind of about figuring that one out. But yeah, the Forlorn Hope, while the players are out doing this adventure, it blows up. It explodes. This huge famous bar that's been, part of cyberpunk lore for, by this point, over 2 decades, like in our time and in universe, is gone. It just completely blows up. And they're kind of, down the road for that. So when that happens, they're supposed to rush to the buildings, protection and their safety. And the rest of the mission is getting them out, is like getting the people outside of out of the Forlorn Hope, saving people. And it turns on a dime, like instantly. It is a completely different mission the moment they enter the Forlorn Hope, because now there's a clock, there's a timer, and they have to save all of these people before this timer goes down. And if they don't save certain people by certain points in the timer, they die. So there's a lot of consequences to dilly-dallying or taking the wrong course of action. And luckily, my players were able to figure out how to do it all before beating the timer. I don't even think they really got that close. It wasn't exactly too tense. One of my criticisms, I'd say, for this mission would probably be I'd lessen the timer. I don't know. I guess it really depends. My party had a little bit wider array of skills, and some of them were more experienced characters. So that likely did have an effect. But at the same time, some of the newer characters, like we did have some new characters in there, they did just fine. I think it might have just been luck of the rolls or something. But yeah, I don't know. If I were ever to run the Angel Share again, I might lower the timer by 2, make it like an 8-round timer or something. But that's beside the point. Once the party gets all of the characters out of the Forlorn Hope, they're not over, because the Red Chrome's still in the neighborhood, and I might want revenge, or maybe they just want to do some good old-fashioned ransacking. Either way, they are now here to cause some problems with the rescue effort. And that's exactly what happened. One of my players got hit by the red chrome pickup truck that all these chromers were coming in. They just ran him over and dropped all the guys off. And then it just became a huge fight in the street. Luckily, they were able to beat up all of the red chromers, as my players do tend to succeed in pretty much generally whatever they try. And that's not through lack of trying. It's just how the luck goes in my group. But they managed to get through. Some people were seriously wounded. Of course, the person who got hit by the pickup truck definitely wasn't doing too hot, but they managed to make it out alive and to the clinic at the end. And they loved that mission. Let me clarify. I don't think there was a single point in that mission where my players weren't having a blast and immersing themselves in this sort of cyberpunk world. And I think really, the Angel Share is a very strong mission to start on when it comes to the Hope Reborn, because wow, like it's just, I don't know. It sets up the rest of the campaign very nicely, because now the campaign, you realize, is not about, just a bunch of missions from the Forlorn Hope. No, it's about rebuilding the Forlorn Hope, finding a new spot for it, and kind of making this sort of forming this own sort of history around the Forlorn Hope that you can build off of, based off of the decisions your players make, and sort of the consequences of their actions, because some people might die in that first mission, and that'll change how they appear, or things that happen in later missions in the campaign. And I think that is extremely important and very interesting as a concept to build off of. The second mission, Real Estate Rumble, is intense to say the least. They kind of kick it up a notch here on this one. It feels like a sort of string of somewhat unrelated missions until you get to the end and realize that, oh, they are all connected. But the idea is you're working with a real estate agent, Jack Skorkowski, based off of YouTuber Seth Skorkowski, an amazing YouTuber. Would recommend his content for anyone who's listening. This is not an endorsement. But you get he's a real estate agent that works with edge runners, and you get this sort of idea that he's been around for a while. I mean, he's been around since the 1920s. He survived the Fourth Corporate War. He's a tough guy, badass. And he is here to help you find the best spot for the Forlorn Hope. But real estate's complicated, kids. So it's going to take some time to find the right property. But in the meantime, he'll offer you jobs and money, sort of to kind of keep you tided over. Because that's the thing. Mr. Skorkowski, despite being a big, bad real estate agent, does have a lot of problems, or at least has had a lot of problems lately. He's been renovating a property, and for some reason there's been strange sounds and noises happening recently. Just today, I mean, the workers, they came into work and the door was covered in blood. They refused to go inside because they believed it was haunted. So he's sending along the edge runners to make sure that everything's a-okay. And when the party gets there, they, of course, find a door covered in blood. And when they go inside, they find the Home Alone house. That's the best way I can describe it. The whole place is booby-trapped to hell. There's bombs in a vending machine. There's bombs hidden in a floodlight somewhere, which doesn't even activate if the players don't do anything with the floodlight, which I think is funny. There's so much stuff going on in this building. There's a room where the floor is entirely wet, and they put an electrical trap in there, so the whole room is electrocuted. And the players just have to get through that and disarm this huge bomb at the end. And that's just 1/3 of the mission. The next part includes just being sent out to a garage, because there's this huge problem happening. One of Jack's garages at South Night City, his camera just went kaput. When you get there, you find out why. The place got blown into, and there's a bunch of scavengers running out and just looting the place. So after you take them out, you realize, or you interrogate someone, or you investigate, and you realize that you guys weren't the first ones there. There's a news van there slightly before you arrived. Following that lead, you're eventually led to this lady named Destiny, who this is how it played out for my players, who showed them footage where they were able to discern that the bozos were involved. And of course, at this point, they're starting to put together that, hey, booby traps and, crazy traps like that's a very bozo thing to do. And for reference, bozos are a gang of clown people. They're psycho clown biosculpts. That's the best way to put them. They love making other people insane and turning them into clowns as well. That's their MO. They love gang stalking. But anyways, once they kind of put this bozo connection together, of course, the news anchor is off to go write that story. So, scream sheet incoming. But that kind of puts them in a position where it's like, oh, it's the bozos, and they're targeting Jack for some reason. Well, Eventually, the third part of the mission comes, and Jack's found a property for the Forlorn Hope, and he wants everyone to come out and see it. So he invites everyone in, and, well, they go and check out the first floor, and there's a bomb that they have to defuse. But that's the thing. The bomb's a trap. It's not even a bomb. It just shoots confetti. In fact, it's actually meant to distract them from the truck getting stolen out front. The truck, of course, containing very important construction equipment, very costly construction equipment. So now it's up to the players to enter the final confrontation of the session, which is fighting the bozos on the back of a giant flatbed truck while one of the bozos is using the construction equipment to attack the party. This is one of the best set pieces I think we've done in Cyberpunk for a bit. I mean, I've done a ton of really impressive, really cool set pieces, but I really think the DMing this part and how my players were able to creatively come up with solutions and ways to get the bozos to fall off the flatbed truck or to avoid damaging the construction equipment, it really did kind of allow for a bit of creativity to come out there. The fight did last a little long just because the drivers in the front were difficult to get into necessarily with the cab. But, I mean, I think the fight generally developed really well. I had a player who was able to pretty much get onto the enemy flatbed truck and just like kung fu people off. It was pretty nice. General opinion on Real Estate Rumble from the people who played it was they enjoyed it. There has not been a single mission so far that has been, it felt like it dragged or anything. Real Estate Rumble, one comment I heard was that it was kind of a decent mix of combat. There was quite a large section of role play with like Destiny, and of course Jack. People, they loved Jack. I don't know if it was the way I played Jack, like the voice I gave him, which was based off of Seth Skorkowski's own sort of cyberpunky voice that he does. But they loved Jack. It was probably the writing, I'm going to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I think Jack Skorkowski as a character was really, really funny, well-written guy. And I'm glad to see that he definitely does make multiple appearances throughout the rest of the mission book. As for the rest of the missions, Welcome to the Neighborhood is the one following, and I think that's the last one I'm going to discuss. I have not run Welcome to the Neighborhood, but I can discuss a little bit about what I think of its content, because I have read through it, and generally I thought it was a very good idea for a mission. The idea of Welcome to the Neighborhood is Jack Skorkowski, or not necessarily, sorry, Marianne Freeman wants the Edge Runners to move into the new neighborhood to see if, see how things go, kind of get to know the people, make connections so that when the Forlorn Hope gets up there, they can just sort of, buy off of local talent. And that's a really good idea. So what it is basically it's just a mission for the Edge Runners to live in this neighborhood for a month and just do a bunch of gigs for various people around the neighborhood. And there's like 4 or 5 of them, and they're all little mini missions, like maybe take 2 hours. But all of them have their own plot lines. They've got these really interesting things that go on, like Biotechnica's involved, and they have these super like mutant trees or something. It's crazy, and it's very exciting. Now I'd like to end us off by talking about this week's Monster of the Week. And since we talked about a Dungeons & Dragons monster last week, you might notice we're following a pattern. We're going to discuss a metaphorical monster this week in the Cyberpunk universe. And since I just brought them up, let's talk about Biotechnica. Biotechnica is a biomedical organization. They make things for people. One thing that's especially popular with them is their Biosculpt line, which allows people to take on the form of anthropomorphic cats, dogs, furries, so to speak. And that is canon, sorry. But anyways, they also are the ones who patented Chew2. Chew2, of course, being the replacement for gasoline in the Cyberpunk universe, which has gone the way of the dodo. It has been replaced by this new fuel, Chew2. And they are eventually bought out by Petrochem which gives Petrochem a very large competitive advantage over Savoil, our last metaphorical monsters of the week. So that is Biotechnica. Personally, there's a lot going on with them. Some people say they're kind of the best corporation. I say they're the best at hiding things. Anyways, that is our metaphorical monster of the week, and that will be our podcast for the week. So, thank you very much for listening. This has been Dungeons and Dystopias. Please come in next week where I actually discuss Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 3 a little bit. I'm very excited.